everybody to the Flightline Podcast. Bill here, and I've got Tiffany with me. How you doing, Tiffany?
Good, Bill. Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's been so long.
It's been so long. No, we got together, of course, a few times at Oshkosh while we were there this past week, and I know that we're both exhausted and trying to get back into the swing of things in our normal lives. But we had a great time at Oshkosh. We did a bunch of different things. We did a couple things together, and we've got a lot of ideas and content coming your way. But we wanted to just do, for this week's episode, we just wanted to do a real quick recap of the things we saw and that we thought were interesting, and kind of go back and forth and talk about that. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the things that we wish we would have been able to get to and weren't able to get to. Does that sound all right with you, Tiffany?
Yeah, that sounds really good.
All right. So what's one of the things that stood out for you at Osh 24 this year?
I love the B-52. I've only seen a B-52 at Nellis. Did not let me get close to it. I think they pointed guns when we tried to walk across to get to it. I'm just kidding. So it was really cool to watch that come in and then get to climb into wheel well and massive wheels. I have some video and pictures of it where this kid's standing there with his arm up on the wheel and his head resting like that. I mean, they're like almost 5 feet tall. It's amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of video for next week, hopefully, we've got a little surprise for you. We're going to go over some more things from Oshkosh. And like I said at the top, we got some interviews and some other interesting people planned to bring onto the Flightline Podcast in the next few weeks. But just as a hint for next week, just think maybe Mystery Science Theater. We're going to go over some stuff with you. So that'll be fun. One of the things that kind of stood out to me this year was time that I spent in forums. I usually don't make the time to spend time at some of the talks and the forums and some of the vendor talks or at the AOPA, I don't remember what they call it, but the auditorium that they have there. And so I did a little bit more of that, even though I spent 3 days working with Lightspeed in their tent. Somehow I had to cut out some other things I wanted to do, but I went to some of those talks, and that was pretty interesting. I did a couple on advanced features of ForeFlight, since that's something that's so important to my everyday flying.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I went to a talk that was at one of the Garmin theaters that they had. They had 2 tents that they were doing talks at, so that was pretty interesting. I went to one that was about building a Zenith aircraft. I'm not planning on building one, but I just thought it would be really interesting, and I did that. And
that's kind of a random one.
Yeah, I know.
Where are you finding
Yeah.
all of the forums? Are you using the app or using the catalog?
Back in the day, it used to be kind of posted in these big documents, 15 years ago, and you kind of had to search through those. But the app makes it pretty easy now. I've got some feedback for EAA on the app. It could be easier to find the exact location of the venue because you have to find where you're going, and then you have to go to a different place in the app and find, how to get there. So I got some feedback there, or maybe I need some user education on how to use it. But yeah, for the most part, I went through the app and I was able to find some of those opportunities. There's, of course, some I didn't get to go to, and we'll talk about that in the wish I could have section of this podcast. But yeah, that was pretty fun. I've done them before, but only maybe 1 or 2 per year. And this time I did about 3 or 4. And I just love learning. And so that was pretty fun. It was pretty fun to be able to go do that and hang out with a bunch of fellow aviators and learn some new stuff.
What are your takeaways from those?
Well, some of my takeaways, if I go back to ForeFlight, which is actually kind of important for me in my everyday flying, I actually learned a few things about how to use that app that I really didn't know before. And one of the focuses that they have lately is really focused on turbulence and what the air is doing. And there's some things I didn't realize in some of the newer versions. I always read through the release notes, but I don't always internalize it all the way. And ForeFlight's doing some pretty interesting things around, they have a lot of people fly with a Sentry or other ADS-B in, And those have ADHRs in them. And so they can tell when you're going up or down or when there's bouncing and things like that. So they're collecting data from pilots, even when they're not doing pilot reports or PIREPs. But they're collecting data. They know the type of aircraft from the tail number. They know, the size and the weight of the aircraft. They know where the aircraft is because of the GPS. And they're correlating all that data, and they've got technical filters that's filtering out things like regular descents and things like that they can kind of figure out based on context. They're starting to build maps of where turbulence is, what altitudes, how severe, all of those things, just automated from people using ADS-B in and reporting through the app. It's kind of ingenious. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to collect all that data.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And
go
ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I
was just gonna add, and I know that there's other things, coming down the pike that people are, I had some candid conversations that aren't on the record, so to speak, with some folks at different vendors that are sometimes partnering with each other too, that really are going to leverage what we're learning about big data, so to speak. I hesitate to use the term AI because it's overused and kind of has a lot of weird connotations, but there is this concept of having a lot of data around something and being able to use that to glean insights automatically by systems. And I think there's some really interesting stuff that's going to be happening in aviation, using big data. And it'll be fun over the next few years to kind of see how people innovate and take the amount of information we have at our fingertips and how we glean usable data from that, and use it in the cockpit. So it's pretty cool time to be engaged in general aviation for sure.
Yeah, and with the data, when we met up a couple of times, and you were telling me about some of the interesting booths that you had seen. It's like the data kind of ties into the AI as you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And I think that you found two really interesting companies that are using AI to further general aviation.
Yeah. And we're going to bring some more in-depth interviews with both of those. One of them is a company called Aerosys, but if anybody went to Oshkosh, you probably would have seen advertising everywhere, including in the bathrooms, I noticed.
Yes, I did notice that.
Where they were saying, talk to me.
Wait, I'm not sure how I feel about QR codes in the bathroom.
Right, because you got to get
in the stall.
Because you got to get the old camera out. That's not really the place you should be opening up your camera or holding up your phone. I agree with you there. You probably would have seen them as Talk to Goose. So we're going to be sitting down with Mark Hahn, who's the CEO and founder, in the next couple of weeks, and we'll bring that to you as part of the Flightline podcast. So that'll be really interesting. And that one is really about a digital co-pilot. I know, again, some people might call it AI. It's really kind of a bunch of preset up data and a language model to allow allow us to use our device that we're already using probably for ForeFlight or some other EFB, be able to use that device to also remind us of things, switching tanks, time to do a checklist, and even run through the checklist for you audibly like a pilot would. Be able to talk to it, to bring up information about where you're going, maybe even set a course, a direct to course using your voice, some things like that. So really interesting stuff there. Did you get a chance to take a look at it, Tiffany?
I did. I think that is, especially for new pilots, I like that idea. I remember, first solos, first cross countries, and second guessing yourself, and then just have that feeling of a safety net or somebody else, having that CFI on board, if you will.
Kind of watching your back a little bit. Like, isn't it time for you to be doing your cruise checklist? It seems like it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that we all get down on tools. I use ChatGPT quite a bit for content creation and helping with build concepts and whatnot.
Yeah, so it's taking that ChatGPT, that large language model concept, and applying it specifically to aviation. And in this case, specifically to, helping us fly as a co-pilot would.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you are single pilot, why not have somebody helping you? Now, obviously, I have some skepticism as well, so that'll come out in our interview, and I've already talked to Mark about that, and he's all for it. He wants to talk about. It's not that I'm skeptical about the overall product, but I think we need to learn a lot more, and of course, we need to train a lot more with some of these things, in my humble opinion, before we can just go out there and fly and rely on them. But that's all part of the growing process, and I think it's awesome that people are innovating and coming up with new ways to do this. But we'll save discussion, deeper discussion on that when we get to talk to the company themselves and hear about their origins and, where they're planning on taking it. So looking forward to that, and you can look forward to it too.
Trying to think if there was anything else that was really interesting in the exhibit halls. It's usually the same stuff every year, but it's kind of a wonderful sense of familiarity to walk through and know where everything's at.
Yeah.
I visited my buddies over at Hooker Harness. They have good swag, great product.
Yeah. Cool. Did you see, here's a fun one. Did you see the Elvis Jet motorhome?
Oh, I did. And I was watching it on YouTube.
Yeah. So
there was about 2 or 3 art cars that I'm going to call them art cars that they had on site, which was really cool. There was
I saw the St. Louis
one.
Driving around. Did you see that one? Yeah, I saw a couple of gals like riding on the stubby wings, riding around on the car. That was pretty funny. What else did you see as far as art cars go?
I think that was it. However, I do have an art car that I will be trying to bring next year.
Oh yes, I've heard about this. I can't wait to see it in person.
Yes.
Maybe I'll get to see it.
It's not mine. It's my friend's.
Yes, yes.
But I will be on the mission to get that there.
Sweet.
The art cars are great. It's just a fun way to be walking around and feel like you can engage differently.
We did run into somebody with an art couch over near the SOS tent. So we got some video and some pictures of that. We'll show it to you in our next episode for next week.
That was the best seat in the house.
For sure. Yep, exactly. So yeah, back to the Elvis Jet. So if you haven't seen that, it's being showcased on a YouTube called Jimmy's World. So Jimmy has purchased an old jet that was never going to fly again that happened to have belonged to Elvis, and the inside was so pristine that they didn't have to restore anything. They just had to clean it up. And so it's like a little time capsule, and he didn't want to get rid of that time capsule. So he turned it into a motorhome. He put it on a motorhome chassis, took the wings off, of course. And it's now, the fuselage is now the motorhome, and you can drive it around from the cockpit with a diesel pusher chassis. So, I mean, again, the things that people think of and innovate on, just, it's mind-boggling and super fun. I love this community, and so that was pretty fun to see. Yeah,
that one cracked me up. And on the back, it's all shook up. Is the name of it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
Thank you very much.
That was a pretty good one. Thank you.
I also I have a couple of my favorites for home-built airplanes, and so I got to spend some time with those guys. So of course the airplanes themselves, I always want to see what's new and what they're doing and how they're innovating, but it's also fun to catch up with the people that are behind these companies and these operations. So that's always really fun. And so I'm just going to give a shout out to the guys at Bear Hawk, kind of revitalized. They got some really cool airplanes that have these massive envelopes of performance, like stall speeds down in the 40 mile an hour range and cruise speeds up in the 130, 140 mile an hour range. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. Tail dragger off airport style airplanes that you can build yourself. And that's pretty cool. And then I also spent some time over at Sling Island. I've always been a big fan of the Sling aircraft out of South Africa. They have a location in Torrance. I think most people know that, where they do flight training, but they also do build assists and deliveries of airplane kits and things like that over in Torrance, California. So those are a couple of ones that I visited, kind of saw what was new, got to crawl around their airplanes and really check them out. So that was really fun. Something I do every year, but it's always fun to see what's the latest. So anything like
I'm
that
not
for you?
familiar with that airplane.
Which one?
What's that? The Sling.
Oh, Sling. Yeah, they're cool airplanes. They have a couple of models. Well, three really. They've got the Sling High Wing. They've got the Sling TSI. Those are both 4-place, kind of go places airplanes, but they run with Rotax 915 or 916 IS engines, so they're turbocharged. They get up and go pretty good, and they sip gas. So really, really efficient aircraft, really nice looking. The TSI is a low wing. That was sort of their standard. And then the high wing they came out with a couple of years ago and made a big to-do in, I think it was 2022, when they flew the first Sling high wings to Oshkosh from South Africa, 3 of them. And those can be built as either a tail dragger or a conventional gear or tricycle gear aircraft, and they're just awesome. They're awesome airplanes. Yeah, I just love them. I've always been following their endeavors, so that was pretty cool. And then some of the show planes that I really wanted to see, I got to see. So I've been seeing some of them online a little bit as we were leading up to Oshkosh, but that AOPA giveaway plane for next year, it's one of the straight tail 182s. Oh my gosh, I'm just in love with that airplane. It's got like a teal paint job that was inspired by their first magazine cover, I think back in the 50s, of a 182 just like this one, same model. And so they redid that paint job. It's like teal and black and white, and it's gorgeous. And the yoke is teal. The inside is all redone. They did avionics out here in Mesa, Arizona, where I fly at Falcon Field. And so my son was actually flying one day a couple of weeks ago and saw it out on the ramp right before they flew it back to Oshkosh. So got to see that one. It's just beautiful. Check it out if you haven't. And also at AOPA, they were showcasing Chelsea Smith's beautiful 150 that she recently repainted in Santa Maria, California, which is basically where I'm from originally, where I was born and raised. So I've got a couple of local tie-ins to those as well. But that one's also a beautiful retro paint job, upgraded avionics, but always in round dials. And so it's got that classic looking 150 look on the panel, but with modern avionics. It's just, again, just gorgeous. I just love seeing people get these airplanes restored and looking and flying so well and just keeping them going. And along those same lines, Stevie T. Treisenberg, I think, she had her 140A, Cessna 140A on display over at the Garmin tent. And that was also gorgeous. The old tail dragger 2-seat airplanes, just same thing as Chelsea's, just really classic looking, but modernized and upgraded and updated. Just really gorgeous. I know my middle son, who's also a pilot, he became a pilot last year. He loves that plane and was looking at some of the pictures and some of the videos, and was noting how he just loved the nose of that airplane. I got to thinking later, I'm pretty sure he was talking about the airplane and not Stevie, but it could have gone either way, because
you never
know, young guy. But yeah, it was fun to kind of see some of those airplanes that I've been following and watching and see them up in person. And sure enough, they were gorgeous as ever. So I just love seeing what people can do, So
yeah, I do too. In the Warbirds area, it's really neat when you go down there and check out what people have going on. My friend has a T-34 that he purchased and pretty much brought it back down to bare bones and had it rebuilt. And it pretty much takes first in class every year. We flew to Oshkosh a few years back, and he had these organ arrow seats that were more comfortable than a couch. He's got the T-34 has got the bubble canopy, so it gets hot, but he has the vests that circulate the water going through it, and then the ice chest where the cold water lives goes into the back, and that fabulous.
The
Fabulous
portable
trip.
air conditioning. Yep. Love it.
It was so nice.
Yeah, well, I
Absolutely.
got to
there's so much love.
I got to meet him, but I never got to see the airplane. So we'll have to go take a look at that next year.
That's because he was barbecuing steak
I
and
know.
warbirds.
It was delicious. Yep. It was
Which I
awesome.
think was pretty much the gist of my trip. I got there on Tuesday evening, and then left on Saturday. And the whole trip was just meeting up with friends and connecting and watching the night show and making more friends. And our top 5 must-dos in Oshkosh, or hacks, if you will. I think I nailed all of them. So there was night 1, went to Pete's Garage for dinner. And one thing about Pete's Garage is everybody must have heard our podcast, because it was definitely packed, right? A popular place. In fact, it's so popular that EAA asked Pete, hey, why don't you become a vendor at Oshkosh? And he has probably the biggest, for first year, it's probably one of the biggest, I don't know what you call it, eating locations, vendors on site.
Yeah, they were doing the concession for, what was it, Hangar D. They're on the southwest side of the grounds, and yeah, very prominent spot for sure, especially for a first-time vendor, like you said.
At the restaurant, he's got the whole place is decked out. I have some video we'll stick in here, and they have the license plates. And I thought it was very, very cool when you went to the location on site and at Oshkosh, and he'd put the license plate in there as well, and had the same vibe going on. But night 1, I'm sitting in the restaurant. It takes forever to get your food, so having a cocktail and taking some pictures. And the guy next to me starts yelling, "What are you, a tourist?" Like, of course, we're all tourists for this week. And ended up, chatting with probably 4 or 5 different groups of people. And at the end of dinner, you've got plans for the next day to go watch the air show at this person's chalet. And it was just a snowball effect. So I think I ended up spending most of my time. I went to Kid Venture. That was fantastic. Went to the museum, went to the gala.
We can't forget the Wednesday night air show too. It's just spectacular. And now with the drones, it's just like to another level now. Yeah.
The first year they did the drones, they were way off. If you're looking at the runway, they were way off to the left, and the drones just kept bonking into each other, and you could see them falling down. I think we talked about that before, but it was their first year, and now to see what the drones can do, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Be walking around the grounds even other nights, and you'd look up and you'd go, "Oh, they got the drones up, making all kinds of shapes and animations," and so it's pretty amazing.
I was looking at, this is off topic, but San Diego Comic-Con, I was looking at some videos of that, and they had the drones there too, and it's unbelievable what they're doing. They're taking the Marvel comics and in 3D, they're just creating Wolverine or whatever in the sky.
Yeah. And of course,
those were good fireworks.
Like every Oshkosh, you got all these fighter jets flying around, and we haven't even mentioned the snowbirds yet from Canada. It was I think it was like the 100th anniversary of military aviation for Canada or something like that. And so the snowbirds were there. That was pretty interesting. They have cute little jets, but there's a lot of them, and they fly really close together, and they are very precise. So it's really impressive.
And I was assured that those are not RC.
Yeah.
There's really people in them flying.
They do kind of look
That's
small
my favorite
sometimes.
Snowbird joke. But they looked great. And then they brought their F-18 in. Their F-18 always has a killer paint job. And flew formation with him. And I did notice, I took some pictures of it, I believe, too. But I did notice that when the snowbirds were flying, the show line had to be different. And we know that the Blue Angels cannot fly at the show because there's locals who won't leave their house, which means that the box has to be smaller or moved in a different location. I think that's what happened with the snowbirds.
Yeah, but they were able to fly because they just moved the show line to the west. Little less room out on the flight line, than normal. But I guess they were able to make it big enough just by moving it on that one side. So thankfully, because then we got to see them.
Yeah, they were great.
Although
sitting upstairs
mentioning the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds, who don't come often to Oshkosh, at least part of the official show, but they both made appearances this weekend. I don't know if you caught that, but a couple of times
I did not.
The Thunderbirds came by. One time, I think it was just one of the solos, or maybe it was both solos, but I only saw one at a time. Came by and did a few flybys and so on. They were, and then later in the week, I think all 6, maybe even 7, including the media plane, kind of all came and did a little bit of an impromptu show without landing. And they were doing a weekend show in Milwaukee, which is close by, especially in an F-16. So they came by and made an appearance, but the Blue Angels did as well. They had a show in Fargo, North Dakota, and they came by. I don't remember if it was, I think it might have been Thursday. They showed up in the afternoon and flew around a little bit too. So even though they're not officially there as part of the acts, and those guys try and make an appearance at Oshkosh, I mean, why wouldn't you, right? I mean,
oh, they certainly made an appearance at SOS. I did see a few of them down there.
Nice.
Well, why wouldn't you? You know that when they're picking their air shows, they want to pick the one closest to Oshkosh,
they want to be in the Midwest. Exactly. Maybe we can fly by, if you will.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
I've seen them do that a few years. See, that's fun.
Yeah, I had to take a double take because I didn't realize the Thunderbirds were coming, and I'm like looking up going, wait a minute, that's one of the F-16s in the Thunderbirds. You can tell because they've got the Thunderbird painted on the bottom, like very distinctive. And so, yeah, it kind of surprised me. And then I found out that, yep, they're making appearances. They're close by. So pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's...
well, it was definitely a good air venture. And I will say the worst part about air venture is Saturday night, Sunday morning, EAA did a really good post on their social.
Oh, yeah? I missed it.
It was just all the planes flying out. Definitely go look at EAA on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you choose to look at social media. But it was just all these different airplanes flying out, and you really get the gist of just how incredible it is. They have anyone from Doc to like a little 150, just different warbirds going out. It was the departure of all the most bitchin' airplanes that you could imagine. And so sad to see everybody leave.
Yep.
But they did a really cute post that says, "It's not goodbye, it's see you later."
Yep. See ya.
So, but that is definitely the saddest part about Oshkosh is if you're there on a Sunday and you watch all the campsites slowly start thinning out.
I was going to ask you, Tiffany, have you ever closed out Oshkosh? Have you ever been there through at least Sunday night?
I have.
So have I.
Depressing.
It is depressing. It's so weird.
But it's cool.
It's so weird because, everybody's leaving and things are taken down and Camp Scholler empties, the North 40 empties, and it just feels like you're already kind of losing something. But I guess like EAA said, it's not goodbye. It's just see you later. So
it's like you're the last one at the party.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why we love it because, they're cool airplanes flying away, but it's the people flying away in them that we miss. And always look forward to getting back together, next year at Oshkosh. It's such an amazing family of aviators and enthusiasts that get together. And my wife calls them my all the friends I meet up with, she calls them my imaginary friends because most of them she hasn't met, which I think is kind of funny. But I always can't wait to meet up with my imaginary friends at Oshkosh every year and any time that we can get together. And that's really what it's about. But speaking of sad, go ahead.
I did take a picture of you working
Oh,
at the
yes.
booth so that
Yeah.
you could send it to your wife so she knew you were actually working. You
Working
weren't
hard.
just making an excuse to get down there.
That's right. Yeah. What Tiffany's mentioning is that I did spend 3 days working at Lightspeed's booth with them. Great people. I had a wonderful time talking about my favorite aviation headsets, and talking about all the innovative things that they're doing to current customers, prospective customers, and so on. So that was really fun. Had a good time meeting a whole bunch of people, and we met some people that hopefully we're going to bring on the Flightline Podcast here pretty soon, because there's always just such interesting people that you run into at a place like Oshkosh. And so want to help bring some of those stories to you, and everybody's got their amazing stories. But speaking of the sad, Sunday afternoon, everything shutting down, were there any things that you wish that you could have gotten to that you didn't at this Oshkosh? Because I've got a list.
I've been so many times that for the most part, I really enjoy walking around, looking at the planes, watching the show, catching up with friends, etc.
Yeah.
But did I miss anything? I don't know if I missed anything per se, probably because it's such a whirlwind.
I know.
I will say what I missed is being on site. This year, I was in a hotel the last couple of years in an Airbnb, and I did not make it on site until afternoon.
Yeah.
Each day, which was nice because you have air conditioning. I get some work done in the morning, take some calls on the drive in. But one thing I really missed, I guess, I don't think this is exactly what you were asking, is I miss waking up in the morning and walking out of the tent or an RV, and you're just there.
Yep.
You can hear everybody flying. You go, the showers are great, as we've discussed at Oshkosh. That you're always meeting different people in the bathrooms, or just while you're out there washing your hair and whatnot. Not that you're washing your hair together, but yeah, some of my favorite memories from Oshkosh are definitely being in a tent and coming back to your campsite at the end of the day and watching all the planes fly around. I think most days after the air show, I had something else going on that pulled me off site.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't really get that sunset at Oshkosh with everyone just buzzing around. And so I missed that.
Yep. Not only, Tiffany, was that exactly what I was asking about, but I had that on my list too.
Yeah.
Because I also stayed offsite in an Airbnb this time. And I think that's my second time doing that. And I really, really prefer, like you said, to be on site. And as far as weather went, I mean, this was one of the best Oshkoshes I've ever been to as far as weather goes. It was so nice.
It was glorious.
It rarely got hot, and even when it did feel a little warm, it was only when you were in direct sunlight. You get in the shade, and I mean, there were a bunch of times this time where I wished I had a sweatshirt, which of course I didn't bring. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you bring a sweatshirt to Oshkosh? But yeah, I wish I had a sweatshirt. And so as far as weather goes, it was great. We had one rainy day / afternoon, but it didn't even, it just postponed the air show a little bit. Nothing got canceled. They just went to 6:30 instead of 6, or 7 instead of 6:30. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, the weather was fantastic. And I really do prefer being on site. Same reasons Tiffany said. And so hopefully that's how we'll experience more of it. There were a couple of things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on site, not to keep going on to this one, but it really is the best. When you're on site in the afternoon, you've got a Midwest sunset. It's usually gorgeous. You're out there amongst, like, I'm from California. You're from Arizona. So green everywhere, which is so beautiful.
Lots of trees.
And then, yeah, you've got not the Sky Typers, but the Skyrider up, writing EAA or whatever his message is. That's so much fun, just to kick back in a hammock or something and watch that.
Yep.
And then everybody's barbecuing.
Yep.
Everyone's just hanging out, barbecuing, and you're one word away from being someone's friend.
Yeah. So even though I was staying off site, I was closing down the gray lot where I parked every day. I would usually walk out to my lone rental car. It was a Jeep, actually. My lone Jeep sitting out there by itself late at night. I would go back to the Airbnb, and then I would get up as early as I could and get back out there and park in the gray lot and spend the rest of the day in Oshkosh. And so it worked out okay, but it's just not the same as waking up, under the path of the ultralights or something like that in Scholler. And But
you forget too that at the end of the day, there's so much activity going on in the campground.
Yep.
There's the movie theater that you can go to, the fly-in
theater.
Yep. Where different talks are going on, and
I know, and those are all those things that I always wish I get more of. I've experienced them before, but I always wish I get more of those, and there's never enough time to experience everything at Oshkosh. Like I've been wanting for a couple of years to be able to go to the hypoxia chamber and experience hypoxia. Still haven't done that. So that's something I kind of wish I would have. And this year, Osh 24, I didn't even make it out to the Seaplane Base, which is one of my favorite places in all of Oshkosh, and never had a chance to go out. So that's another one that I'm sort of disappointed about. I know you did.
I did day one.
Yep.
It's so pretty. Although one thing I told myself next year I'm going to do is go out there in the evening.
Yeah.
They have the tiki torches and the fire pit. And it's as you walk through in the afternoon, it's just begging you to
stay. Just stay.
Watch me, see what I look like at night.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Someday.
And I saw the albatross hanging out, and
yes.
he took off right as we were rolling up. So that's cool.
That's super cool. Someday, it's on my bucket list to arrive and depart the Seaplane Base. So someday I'll do that. I hear it's a lot more chill to do the Seaplane Base than to do the arrival at Whitman Field. So, bucket list item someday.
Yeah, that's cool. That would be great.
Cool.
Yeah, it's significantly less busy than the main airport.
Exactly. And it's like valet service. You just pull your plane up to the dock, get your stuff out, and they've got a boat where they tug your plane out and tie it off for you somewhere out there. Doesn't get much.
Oh my God, it was so beautiful.
Doesn't get much better than valet service on your seaplane, right? So
that would be a cool place to camp too, I think, if you had that opportunity.
Yep.
It's a little bit more mellow.
Yep.
But
got to try it someday. Well, like you said at the top of this episode, another successful air venture. It's just so amazing to see everyone and see everyone get back together. So we'll give you a bit more information and recap in our next episode. We'll go into some details, and then we have some stuff coming up as we mentioned before, that'll dive into some of these innovations that we've been seeing around aviation. So, but that's kind of the overview for you.
We have some pretty good guests lined up, but just I don't know why nobody wanted to get right onto a podcast the day after Oshkosh.
Yeah, it's weird. We're all exhausted.
I don't know. I'm exhausted.
Yep, me too. You're probably seeing it in my voice. I'm a little hoarse too, losing my voice from all the talking and everything that I did. So anyway, it's awesome. It's awesome to get a chance to spend a few minutes and recap with you, Tiffany, while it's all still fresh. And we'll get some more of this stuff coming out.
That sounds good. I'm going to cut some video and share that as well. I think it was pretty successful. I got some bookstore video, so everybody knows what I'm talking about. Garmin tent video, so you know all the cool places to go. Although they weren't necessarily needed, but I did end up standing in front of the old air conditioner at the bookstore. That's a great spot. It's so cool, right in front of the vintage airplane area, and so you're just looking out, and they have like the old 1940 Fords sitting out there, some trucks, and all the old antique airplanes. So pretty
awesome. Well, until next week's episode, we appreciate you guys watching and/or listening, and we'll see you on the Flightline later.
Sounds good. Thanks for watching or listening.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.